Lucky Perera's story is anything but ordinary. A scientist turned photographer turned teacher, he navigated early childhood challenges as a migrant in Australia, only to finish high school and earn a PhD in medical physics. As a photographer, Lucky spent around a decade shooting bands, weddings, and galaxies, sometimes at the same time. And recently, after completing a Master of Teaching at Deakin, Lucky added education onto his plate. Revitalising the physics program at Kyneton High School in regional Victoria, and using his life experience to engage the next generation of young people to study science. In this episode, we explore finding purpose, embracing change, and the power of human connection. Recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, this is Stories of Wonder. Lucky, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Awesome to be here.
So your journey has spanned science, photography, and now education. How would you describe yourself today?
The best way to probably describe it is like somebody that's able to take risks and jump into something. I was very kind of cautious and slow to adapt to change when I was in my 30s. And now having had these great experiences doing all sorts of different things, I kind of see the joy that life can bring through being brave and going and doing something in the moment, you know? And I still struggle with it. In life, I probably am still cautious in some ways, but when it comes to careers and work and opportunities, I guess I just encourage everyone to just go and do what makes you feel happy. And that's kind of where I am right now, you know? And when I was at uni, my supervisor used to joke that one day I'd be the world's most overqualified taxi driver. And now I kind of like, that sounds like a pretty good gig, you know? So,
well, there's still time, I guess.
Yeah, still time. Yeah.
So you were born in the 80s and then you moved to Sri Lanka as a baby. Mm-hmm. And then you returned to Australia at the age of 7. What was your experience like when you came back and started going to school? You know, like how did those early experiences shape your identity and worldview?
It was not an easy time. Like the 80s in Australia was not a particularly progressive place. And I went to a school that was predominantly white. I had a pretty strong accent. I was bullied because of my accent, because of my appearance. So actually there was this conscious attempt, or maybe it was unconscious at the time, but just trying to assimilate, I suppose, just trying to fit in. And I don't think I felt any sense of pride around who I was at the time about being Sri Lankan. There's a lot of shame attached to the differences that I kind of possessed. And I think it was probably about when I was about 20 that I was able to kind of reflect on the culture that my family brought and be able to have any sense of joy or pride in where I came from. So yeah, primary school was not easy. And I guess, I found it pretty hard to make friends. Didn't have a huge number of friends. It was a pretty slow kind of time, and it took me a long time to kind of grow into myself, I think. Yeah, I think I was just a pretty shy and timid and awkward kid.
After high school, you then started in engineering, but you found a passion in physics. What was it about physics that drew you in?
I don't know. I think I always loved physics at school. I had a great teacher explaining how the universe works. It just felt like there was this natural affinity to it. I'd always been this really curious child, and I had all of these books on science and space, and I'd wanted to be an astronaut since I was a little kid. And I was like, most people pass that phase when they're about 7 or 8, but I was still there at about 15 when I realised actually I was going to be too tall.
Oh.
I think the cutoff at that time was 188 centimetres or something.
I didn't even know that there was okay, right.
I think it's gone up a little bit now, but at that time it was a little bit lower.
I think I might be too tall as well now. That's really, hold on, I'm going to need a minute here.
Sorry to crush your dreams.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Lucky.
So I think my natural interest in space and science, it was a good kind of lead in to physics, and having a good teacher and doing pretty well in physics at at school allowed me to look at it as a potential pathway when I got to university. And I got into an engineering degree through early entry. So I kind of cruised my way through year 12 to get into that. And then, I was probably about 6 months into it when I realised, I don't know if this is what I want to be do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of tacked on a physics degree as well. So did a double degree. As you do. And thankfully, the university I was at in Wollongong was able to accommodate that degree. So it was a nice way to kind of do two things at the same time.
Talk to me a little bit about how you ended up doing a PhD in medical radiation physics. How did that come about?
I'm one of these people that kind of lives in the moment a lot. I don't really think too much about the past, and I don't really think too much about the future. And I probably at that time in my life, I just went with things naturally. I didn't really kind of have any goals or dreams or aspirations to do anything, and that's how things have always kind of worked for me. I've just kind of gone with the flow, and I had done a master's in medical physics after I finished my undergrad, and my supervisor, he said, "Look, you can do a PhD here," and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, that sounds good." I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to do my PhD, and
nice.
I was living at home. I had a pretty good deal. Somewhere on that spectrum of laziness that allowed me to just go with it and kind of do it.
Yeah, a little passive.
Very passive. Yeah, I think that's a really good word. Yeah, I was never. I think I was never active in driving my life. I think that's a really, really good way of describing it. Yeah, for sure.
And what did your parents think of that? Were they pushing you to do something in particular, or were they kind of pretty comfortable with you just sort of following the vibe?
No, they're not those kinds of people. Mum and Dad both had to work really hard to get to where they got to in their lives. So both come from pretty, I wouldn't say poor families, but I know my mum's family particularly didn't have much money. So there was 5 kids. They lived in rural Sri Lanka, and my granddad was a farmer who loved the horses. So there's not always a lot of money left. And my dad's dad passed away when Dad was 13. So they didn't really have a heap of money either. So they got to where they got to through education. So through working really hard. And amazingly, in my family of aunties and uncles, nearly all of them managed to go to university in Sri Lanka, which is just absolutely unheard of.
Wow.
I think Dad was one of 150 people in the country.
Wow.
Of 20 million people or something to get into an engineering degree in that time. And it was through the hard work and the graft and the determination that they both were able to get into those careers that they got into. And then Dad was offered an opportunity to come to Australia to study. So the backdrop of that kind of contextualizes the kind of life that I had growing up, which is like, you need to study, you need to work hard. And I guess Mum and Dad probably saw me as, I think lazy is the appropriate word here. I think they probably saw me as like not achieving my potential, not working hard enough. And I suppose there is a bit of truth to that, because I definitely didn't work anywhere near as much as I should have. They were obviously pleased that I was still pursuing some sort of academic pursuit.
Yeah.
And they were supportive in lots of other ways. I don't know if you've had much experience with ethnic families, but love is shown in different ways in ethnic families. And it's not generally through all of the words and I'm proud of you and I love you and you don't get that, but you get all of the service. Love is shown, the love language is service. I kind of reflect on that time, and my partner, Kristen, she had a completely different experience at university. She was working full-time, studying full-time, and she says, you didn't have to grow up until you were 30. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess during that time, though, you were doing something, though. You were working towards something, and even though it might have been a bit abstract to your parents as to exactly where it was taking you, like, it is pretty amazing that you were doing, a PhD at this point.
Yeah, and I think like there was probably a sense of, they never said it to me, but I sensed there was a sense of pride as well, because like to do a PhD is like in their mind like the pinnacle of academic achievement. So
absolutely.
So I think there was definitely pride attached to it as well. But as to whether I experienced it at the time or not, that's a different question. And it's a shared experience for lots of migrant and ethnic kids.
Yeah. When you were doing your PhD, what was your experience like? Did you, because of how it came about, which sounds almost like it was a bit of a, I don't know, like circumstantial, maybe a little accidental, who knows? Did you ever sort of struggle with that in your mind or feel a sense of, I don't know, imposter syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely. All of the time. And even now, I question whether I was deserving of my qualification at the end of it. I don't know if I worked hard enough during the time to get it. I don't know if I contributed enough to the body of scientific knowledge to be worthy of it. And for the first 2 years, I didn't really get anywhere. I was kind of stuck, and my supervisor was like desperate to support me as best as he could. And I was nearly at the point where I was like, I just can't do this. I'm not getting anywhere. And then one day I was in a seminar that was being presented by one of our fellow PhD students, and I was just doodling on a piece of paper, and I drew a circle and started doing some like coordinate geometry kind of calculations, and this idea came to me that, this is actually going to be something I could possibly use and code. So my work was in positron emission tomography. So we designed this new type of detector at our university, and my job was to run some simulations and to characterize it and to work out what kind of imaging it could do. This idea of the circle and the maths, and I was like, okay, I can code that. And it slowly started from there, and that was 2 years. That was the next 2 years of my life, just coding, writing this program to get the data from the simulation and reconstruct it into an image that could be used to assess how good the detector modules were.
Wow.
So I felt like I did my PhD in 2 years.
Yep.
And like I said, at the end, it was still very foundational. Like this is the starting point. It was the start. And somebody else needed to take it to the next step and be able to kind of use it in more effective ways.
And is that generally what a PhD kind of is? Like you're contributing some sort of bit of research or exploration of something for others to carry on?
I don't know. Maybe. The struggle for me was like, I guess, seeing my colleagues, because they were all working on these amazing projects at our centre. I just kind of felt like I was, it was pretty low level, I didn't feel like I was contributing much. Like I had a mate who was characterising detectors for use by astronauts. So like they put them in the International Space Station to detect the radiation doses that astronauts are getting. And like he's doing that, and I'm literally sitting in front of a computer writing a bit of code to reconstruct an image. So I didn't feel like I was anywhere near those kind of levels of contribution. And I don't think everyone needs to be at that level. But yeah, there's a little part of me, I think. It's really interesting. Like I feel like I'm this interesting kind of mix between wanting to be really good at something but not actually putting the work in to be that good at it. So I felt like maybe if I worked harder or if I put more time into it, then I could be at his level, but then I didn't actually ever get to that point. But now I kind of reflect on it, and I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, and thinking about all of the things in my life that look like that makes sense. I'm like, okay, you did your best. Like you tried. You actually did your best, but you were, neurologically incapable of actually getting to those levels without the support that you needed at that time. So, yeah, I kind of reflect on that period of life and all of my schooling, and it kind of makes sense. And at the time, it was hard. I think it was really hard to kind of see myself as maybe somebody that didn't achieve what they imagined themselves being able to achieve. But now I kind of look at that journey that's kind of gone left, right, up and down, and go, actually, it's allowed me to do all these amazing things that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd been an amazing scientist.
Yeah.
If I'd been an amazing scientist, I would probably still be working in it.
And all the contributions are a contribution as well. There's no, it kind of reminds me of the Seinfeld bit where he's talking about, you got some, scientists curing cancer and some other person's going, I need to get the seeds out of watermelon. That's my thing. And you know what? That's worthy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You've said that science can help us get out of what science has gotten us into. What do you mean by that?
Oh, gosh. How much time do you have?
Not much.
Yeah. The Industrial Revolution was a pretty amazing thing for our world. At that time, it allowed us to do all of these wonderful things that we'd never been able to do before. And it was through scientists and engineers and years of endeavour and grit and hard work that we were able to kind of come up with the technology to do all of these wonderful things. But I guess the consequence of that now is that we're in a world that is experiencing this climate catastrophe. We are heading towards this, this awful kind of endpoint for humanity if we keep going this way. And I think putting aside all the political aspects of it, which is 95% of the problem, I think there is an opportunity for scientists and science to firstly identify what the problem is. And we've kind of been doing that for about 20 years. And I say we, not as in me, but we as in scientists for about 20 years. And I think we've got to move to the next phase, which is the investment and the time and the political support for some of the ideas that are being put forward to actually be used. Really amazing opportunity if we can put aside all the politics and, the support for the people who are off making money somewhere else while everybody else is struggling away. If we ignore the needs of all of the political donors and all of that kind of stuff, there is an opportunity for us to actually be able to do something to mitigate the problem that we've kind of created for ourselves.
Big ifs.
Big ifs. I would have hoped that we were at a tipping point now.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a John Butler song the other day and it was from an album that was 15 years old and he's still singing about stuff that's still the same stuff. Nothing has changed, And I really wish that there was a space in the world for people to look at science and research and engineering and be able to look at the expertise that's there and use that as the guiding principle for how we get ourselves out of this without worrying about the economics, without worrying about the political ramifications, without worrying about whether we're keeping, the billionaire class happy, whether the stakeholders are happy. If we can ignore the economics of all of this stuff, I think there is a possibility that we can actually do something that will help.
So after your PhD, you've spent all this time in Queensland really up until this point, you moved to Melbourne and you spent a decade as a photographer doing things like weddings, capturing special moments like that infamous galaxy behind the bride and groom photo that sort of went around the world. What did photography teach you about human connection and storytelling? Yeah,
good question. Do you know, it's really interesting. When I first became a photographer, I did it because I ran out of other options. So I actually applied for a job at a research centre in Melbourne, didn't get it. Right. And it was the first time in my life that I hadn't got a job that I'd applied for. And I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And my partner, Kristen, was, incredible. And she said, hey, you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to dread going to work every day, If you want to be a photographer, you can be a photographer.
How long have you guys been together?
Did
you meet here in Melbourne or was it in Queensland?
No, we met in Brisbane. I think we'd been together for about 2 years by that point.
Right.
Yeah. So Kristen and I, we were tight right from the start.
Yeah.
She was instrumental to helping me kind of get out of that really constrained kind of worldview, being conservative, not willing to take risks, because that's the complete opposite of her. For her, when something's not okay, she's like, okay, I'm going to do something about it. She's not passive. She's really active. When we moved down to Melbourne, she was like, look, if you want to be a photographer, you can do it. And she was really good with helping me get my business kind of started. So that was kind of like the the foundation. And one of the things that she kind of talked a lot about is, in terms of presenting yourself as a photographer, like there are a million photographers out there. Why would anybody want to hire you? Why should they hire you? And she said the best way to do that is to just be completely yourself.
Yeah.
Like, present yourself in the way that you are and the way that you want to be seen, because then you will attract people who have the same values, who are interested in the same stuff. And that was just such an amazing way of looking at things, because I'd never really thought about it. And I never felt comfortable in being truly myself. And I think that's, again, connected to the kind of trauma that I experienced as a migrant and like just kind of making myself small. And she was like, no, you don't need to be this tiny thing. You can be loud. You can be yourself. You can express the things that are important to you. So I was really lucky that I had that amazing advice so early on, because it allowed me to find a niche in the wedding and photography world that just wasn't really a thing, back then. Like, people didn't talk about their political and social beliefs on their wedding photography website. I talked about the ethics of photography, and I talked about, the ways that we should treat each other and the way that we should kind of like do the operational side of business as well, in an ethical way. And
what are the ethics of, just quickly, of photography that you were including in there?
Yeah.
And also, it's a very, even today, like with what I see with wedding photography and just the cottage industry around weddings, it can be very white here in Australia.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we often talked about. Like, the industry is not representative of the society that we live in. So there was very much focus on attractive, and I say attractive, white heterosexual couples. That was who the industry showed. Chris and I got married, I think about a year before that. And when we were kind of like looking around for ideas, I didn't see anyone that looked like me.
Yeah.
There was nobody that looked like me out there, not in the wedding world. And I think that was a bit of an eye-opener, I guess, without being conscious of it.
That's your gap in the market.
Yeah, that's it. It was just truly myself. And that actually allowed me to connect with people from everywhere that really kind of, I felt like they saw the world through a similar lens. And what that meant for me was that I could go to a wedding and I wasn't a contractor. I wasn't just a dude that turned up and took photos.
Yeah.
It allowed me to kind of become more of a human connection. There was a human connection. Like, it was not just a transaction. It wasn't transactional in any way.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the money.
Right.
It was always about, well, I love spending time with these people. I love being there for that beautiful, amazing experience in their lives.
Like one of the most intimate occasions in some ways of their lives.
It is. And I would often say with couples, like, I will spend more time with each of them, or definitely one of them, than they probably will with each other on the day. So I felt really invested in every wedding that I photographed. And it was probably, probably unhealthy at times in some ways. Like, well,
that's a lot of weddings as well.
Yeah.
You did this for what, 10 years?
Yeah, about 10, 12 years. And it was amazing. Like, it was beautiful. And I got to travel all around Australia, got to, I think, like 15 countries or something. We had endless summers for about 3 years because we'd base ourselves out of the UK and travel and photograph in Europe and North America. So it was this really amazing kind of life that I got to lead through photography. And I remember I went to the UK a few years later, and I was there for 6 weeks, and it was just me at that time. And I think I spent like a total of £200 in the 6 weeks that I was there, because I was just kind of like staying at people's houses. They were driving me around. They were picking me up. And they were just people that I'd met through photography, through photographing their weddings or having met them at like workshops or something. Just like, it was just this beautiful, nourishing experience to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. And it speaks to the connection that you were able to like establish with all these people.
Yeah. And I think that's the real crux of any kind of career that you do, where you have to relate with people. This quote always gets attributed to Maya Angelou. It's like, people won't always remember what you do or what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel, right? And I don't know if that is actually her quote, but that kind of sits at the heart of how I try and connect. It's like, obviously I try and say and do the right things as well, but at the heart of it, I'm always conscious of how did I make those people feel on the day? Did I make them feel valued? Did I make them feel important? Did I make them feel like I cared about them as humans? And that's something that I think I take into my day-to-day life as well.
Well, speaking of, it sounds like you may have taken this into your next career because eventually you shifted from photography into teaching. How did that happen?
I think during the pandemic, obviously everyone's lives were quite disrupted.
Yep. Particularly here in Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne, Victoria, we did it pretty tough here. All of my weddings and photography stuff were put on pause. Yep. I was kind of reflecting on that because I was at home. I was taking care of our daughter, cooking, cleaning, spending time with the three of them.
So you have a daughter by now?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that very important aspect of my life. Yeah, she's nearly 9 now.
Wow.
So yeah, the lockdown was just like, it's like this new family time that I had not really had. And my daughter Vega was like, she loved playing soccer. And I'd been thinking, I'm like, I'm missing out on being able to take her to her games because I'm shooting weddings on Saturdays. Yeah, it gave me a time to kind of reflect on what my life looked like and did I want to miss every Saturday for the rest of my life or did I want to be away? I think the answer that I kind of came to was no. And Kristen was again really good with helping me reflect on it. She's like, I think you've just lost your mojo, mate. And I was like, I don't think I have. And she's like, yeah. So there was a lot of backwards and forwards around it. She's like, I just don't think you're as motivated as before. And now again, contextualizing within the lens of my ADHD, I'm like, yeah, I think the dopamine was not getting released anymore. Like, I'd gotten to the point where I was like, okay, that's it. Your brain's like, okay, mate, you're ready to go to the next thing. You're searching that next hit of dopamine.
What a good partner. Yeah. Isn't that always the way though? They always know they know what's going on for you before you know what's going on for you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with Kristen in general. Like she's really good with understanding people and she's very good at understanding me. With that support and time to kind of think about what else I could kind of get myself into, I'd always kind of loved teaching. Like I'd done a little bit of teaching when I was at uni. And I really loved getting young people interested in science. That was like my jam, I really loved it. And living regionally, you recognise that you bring, for me, I bring a skill set that is not very common for that part of the world. Lots of regional high schools don't have access to, physics teachers. Like they're not, we're not everywhere. So
you're in Kyneton at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, in Victoria, in regional Victoria.
Yeah.
Firstly, you studied at Deakin.
Yep.
For this.
Yep.
Was it a master's?
Yeah, I did an M-Teach in primary and secondary.
Yeah, right. How was that experience for you? Firstly, and it was all online at this point, was it?
Yeah. I chose the online, the cloud degree.
Yeah.
It made sense in terms of managing all of my family responsibilities and also the distance as well. It's a long ways, It's not really workable. So it was nice to have that option. And I was also really fortunate that there was an option to do the primary and the secondary.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you, and what were your feelings going into that? And what did you think you would enjoy more?
Yeah.
And what was your experience trying both?
Yeah, it was good, I guess, because in 2016, my partner and I opened a kids bookstore in Kyneton called Squishy Mini. And the week before we opened, Kristen was like, oh, so are you happy to run the story time? And I was like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, oh, you just have to maybe read some stories and play some songs. I was like, okay, cool, no worries, I'll give it a go. And again, kind of living in the moment, not thinking about the implications or ramifications. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And then story time kind of became this institution in Kyneton. It was wild. We would get, I think the most we had was 120 people in the shop. With and there was prams, a row of prams out the front.
Like a rock show.
Yeah. And I'd walk through Kyneton and the little, the 3 and 4 year olds would be like, there's Lucky, he's lucky. Like it was.
So you were like a celebrity, like a local
in the
celebrity.
under 4 demographic only.
And that's the demographic that
That's the
matters,
demographic you're aiming for, right? Yeah. So I had this really joyous, beautiful experience with these young kids, and I think that was what kind of drew me into, maybe primary school's for you. And I'd always kind of considered this idea, like, where can you have the biggest impact? Where can you change the lives of the most people? Yeah. And I was like, well, if you get in early, then you can help kids know that they're loved and they're supported and that you see them for who they are. And then you go into secondary and you can teach something that you are really good at or you're really passionate about. And, like I've heard people say, like, you go into primary if you love kids, you go into secondary if you love your subject, Right. And I don't necessarily see the divide that clearly for me. I think it's possible to have both of those things in both contexts. So going into primary was very much around, let's get in early. Let's work with some of these kids. And
did you enter being like, you should all know who I am? I mean, I'm a celebrity. And were you on YouTube at this point, by the way? Because you'd started doing some story times and stuff. Was that during COVID?
Yeah, during COVID we were doing like Zoom and YouTube story time, and we'd get people kind of coming in from all over the place. I had lovely messages from people. I was getting letters in the mail. It was very strange. Like I didn't feel like I was
global.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was much, But at that time, I think there were so many people that were just doing it so tough. And I just we were getting all of these messages from people saying, thank you so much because you're giving me 30 minutes to myself, from parents, because their kids would be, watching us doing story time.
And so did you do placements and things like that during your course? And what was that like when you were studying online?
Yeah, I did a couple of placements. Sorry, not a couple. I did a couple in primary context and a couple in secondary. They were really good, really, really good. The first placement was a primary one in a prep class actually, and I just was able to observe and just kind of see how the teacher ran the class, and he actually is now a pretty good mate of mine. So I guess we kind of connected on a human level, and seeing him do his job so well and to see how the kids kind of responded to him was like a really, really nice kind of experience. And like he was a really good mentor teacher to have. And then I had really good mentor teachers in general. Like they were all pretty exceptional kind of teachers, and getting to see how they worked with the young people and how they taught and how they managed their classes. And it's really interesting because I guess like when you are studying in a classroom environment, what you learn is often very different to the practical application of it. So there was stuff that I was learning during my degree, which is really helpful in terms of when I'm planning a lesson or when I'm thinking about the fundamental approach to how do I do this. But then you get into a classroom and there's so much more that you still have to learn before you can actually be an effective teacher. So seeing my mentor teachers modeling that, like how do you manage a class? How do you get everyone to put their hands up when it's time for a question? How do you manage your time effectively to make sure you don't run out of time at the end of the class?
Yeah.
So watching them do all of those things was really good. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to do my placements in person, because I think 6 to 12 months earlier, nobody was doing it in person. And
yeah. Wow. So what was it like when you sort of wrapped up your degree, and how did you you're obviously a teacher now, like how was the process of finding a job afterwards? And also did all of this prepare you for what it's really like?
About half of what I haven't learned, I haven't used yet because it's in a primary context. So I've done 1 day of CRT work at a primary school, and all of the stuff that I learned about primary teaching kind of started slowly coming back. But a lot of the foundational literacy and numeracy stuff I haven't had a chance to really kind of utilize effectively. But in a secondary context, there's all this stuff that I learned along the way that has allowed me to probably be a pretty effective science teacher. And I had an amazing physics lecturer. He was an ex-teacher himself, and just the way that he communicated, the enthusiasm and the passion that he had for teaching, it was just such a great way to learn about teaching physics, and I stole his rubrics. Like I basically completely 100% copied his style of rubric and used that in all of the subjects that I teach at school, because I just was like, man, this is so clear. It's he's telling me exactly what he wants. And so I think the stuff that I did here was really, really, really helpful. And I think the first semester especially was really nice, because there's a lot of the resetting of our kind of inherent biases that we have. Because that's really critical as teachers. Like, we need to go into it recognizing that the world and the classroom is not an equitable place. It's not a fair place. So how do we support those kids that aren't afforded the same privileges as many of the rest of us? So
yeah, I was going to ask, like, how did your experience as a student in the various forms as well, through uni as well, but like affect the way that you approached teaching? Really?
Yeah, being somebody that's been in the margins, being on the edge, I really connect with those kids that don't have always positive experiences at school. So that could be kids that maybe come from backgrounds that are tricky or tough for them. They've had trauma experiences. They may have school trauma. They may have learning difficulties. They may have behavioural stuff going on. They may have neurodivergent stuff happening. Yep. So when I look at those kids, I kind of see a little bit of myself. And I guess I kind of look at it like, how can I make sure that these kids are seen for who they are? These young people are not just the sum of their behaviours. Because if you look at just their behaviours in isolation, you're completely ignoring the context of where they come from and the experiences they've had. So I guess I teach kids in the context of teaching the subject as well. Like, that's one thing. But there's also this thing, it's like, I want you to grow up into be a rounded young person that has options and opportunities in life. And how do I teach you to become a functional member of society? It's not just about, can you be good at coding, because I teach Year 7 digital technologies as well. And so, I'm at either ends of the school. I'm at Year 7 with those guys and Year 11, 12 with the physics. So how do I get those Year 7s to get to a point where they can come into my Year 11 or 12 physics class and still be, and to be good students, to be good learners, and to be, importantly, good people, Because we take in a massive geographical area in Kyneton, and you get kids from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of lives. And some of them, you may be the only person in the day that says hello to them or says a kind word to them. Yeah. So I take that responsibility really seriously, and I feel obligated to make sure that all of the kids in my class, not just the kids that need a little extra support, feel seen and feel respected, and I see them as a whole person and as a person with agency. They're not a child to be molded. Allow them to make mistakes, learn from the mistakes. And I always say with my Digitech class, because there's a lot of kids that love Digitech, love the coding and love the code breaking stuff that we do, and but then there's another group of kids who really hate it. Because they're just not into it. And I tell them.
And do they all have to do it in Year 7?
Yeah, it's compulsory. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I say to them, look, it's okay if you hate my subject. That's totally cool. Like I'm not going to be offended. But you need to get through. Okay? Because this is what life looks like. Life is full of stuff that you're probably not into, that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
But you have to learn the skill of how to push through and how to get something done, even if you are not enjoying it. Yeah. And that's my motivation and drive for those kids. It's not like you just need to do the work. No, it's not about doing the work. Yeah. It's about learning the skill.
You're taking personally about the subject you're teaching or anything like that.
No.
And where are you teaching now? So you're at Kyneton High, is that right? Mm-hmm. And did you do placement there?
Yeah, I did. I actually did my very final placement at Kyneton High.
Oh, wow.
So I was already working there. I'd been asked to start working on a permission to teach teaching
Wow. Yeah.
2 year 7 classes, or 2 or 3 year 7 classes, and I guess I'm still there. Like,
Well, yeah. Well, not only are you still there, but you have you're sort of you've rebuilt the physics program from what I can see, and you've kind of raised the number of students that are even studying physics from like 2 to 19 in VCE, right?
Yeah, like we haven't had a large number of students in physics for quite some time, and last year was my first cohort of Year 12s to go through, and I had five Year 12s last year.
Right.
We had only 2 Year 11s elect to do physics, so they didn't run the subject. But, to the school's credit, they, I think my principal was pretty keen to get the physics program up and going. So she advocated, I think, to get me to do a Year 10 science elective. And I built that subject. I joked that I propagandized all of the students to get them to do physics and chemistry. And this year I've got 19.
Yeah.
19
wow.
Year 11s.
So from 2 students to like 19.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yep.
You won a couple of awards while you were studying at Deakin, right?
Yep.
So we've got an Academic Excellence Award for the highest weighted average mark in the Master of Teaching, and we've got the Student Prize for Outstanding Teaching Practice. How does that feel?
It was so strange getting the phone call. I was just genuinely shocked. I think, I'd never been the best at anything. It's like I always just kind of cruise through just in the middle, So I was very surprised, absolutely humbled and honoured. But it was like, wow, like that's not something I expected. But to be fair, I think that the MTeach was the first time that I truly felt interested and 100% engaged in what I was doing. So throughout all of my other degrees, like I enjoyed them, but I don't think I was as invested as I was with the MTeach. I don't know what it was. Maybe this is the calling in my life that I've just kind of, it's taken me a while to get there. But yeah, I worked really hard. Like this is the first time I've worked really hard on anything. Probably to the detriment of my family.
Well, did you do it part-time while you were studying, or was it full-time?
No, it was full-time. Yeah.
Right.
So I was in seminars at 6:30, I think, in the evenings, and my poor partner's, come back from work and she's having to get our daughter to bed.
Yeah.
And our daughter had been having a pretty rough time at school, and afternoons weren't easy for her, and I was like, okay, sorry, got to close the door, got to get doing my thing, and I think. Now I can reflect on that and go, oh, maybe you probably put in a bit too much time into your study, considering the context of your life. But now I can also kind of see it through the lens again of my ADHD. It's like the hyper focus. My brain is like really into this. So I can shut off the world. Yeah, absolutely, shut off the world, and I can do this. And
but was it flexible as well? Were you able to sort of like pick when your lectures were or when your seminars were?
Yeah, I think a lot of our seminars you could attend them live if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I tried to go to quite a few of them because I think there's like a benefit from being able to ask questions and be involved in like the small group discussions and stuff like that. And I think that was really good. But often I would find myself watching the lectures at like double speed, just to like try and scrub through things as quickly as I could.
Yeah. No other student has done that,
nobody
right?
ever would do that.
No.
There was definitely opportunities for me to work around what my schedule was. So, I was still photographing at the time as well. Like when things kind of opened up again in Victoria, so I was still photographing and working while I was studying. So it wasn't just you can study during the day while your kid's at school. So I was able to balance a lot of my life. Yeah. Through studying through Deakin, and it was pretty good and pretty flexible, and I think having that option allowed me to do this thing, to get this degree that I probably wouldn't have been able to manage if I'd had to be there in person.
Yeah. And so did you enjoy your Deakin sort of experience at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's a little bit hard when you're not located on site with other people. Like, you know, I didn't really get to know a huge number of people throughout my degree. But, you know, I was partnered up with a few people in a few subjects and in small groups. And, you know, I got to meet a few people through that. And there were some really interesting and cool people that I kind of was exposed to. And I guess the real thing that I took from it was obviously the learning. You know, what's the pedagogical knowledge that I need to be a really good teacher? And I think that's the best thing that I kind of got from my degree, and to know that I guess other teachers were also getting this view into teaching about privilege and advantage, like, you know, the stuff that's really important to me, like seeing that being the focus of so much of our first semester in first year was really good. I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to filter out a whole bunch of people that are not into this, while anyone who's maybe not aware of it now will become aware of it. And the next generation of teachers can be more inclusive and more supportive and more understanding of all sorts of kids, regardless of kind of where they come from and their backgrounds and their lives. So, yeah, I think that was probably the first 6 months were like, okay, this is the place for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lucky, you've had so many careers by the sounds of it so far, and your path, you know, hasn't been linear. What have you learnt about embracing change and uncertainty?
Kind of connecting back to the opening question you asked, change and uncertainty are definitely things that I embrace now. Like, you know, I think like I said, I have in the past kind of been like very, very slow to adapt and change and been a bit of a blocker. And, you know, and that can be tricky to be a person in the world that lives life like that, you know, especially when you've got a partner who's the complete opposite, you know. So like it comes with the friction of those two different ways of living. And I think Kristen has taught me through her ways that you don't need to be like that, you know, and she's also taught me that it can be problematic as well, you know, for our relationship and for our family life. So I'm much more willing to give things a crack and to not be scared of what could happen. And I think that that's a good way to live, you know, like I would have never become a photographer if I hadn't taken that jump. I would have probably not become a teacher if I hadn't been able to just go, you can just go back to uni. And, you know, and I say that all with the understanding that I'm like immensely privileged to be able to have a life where I can make these jumps and leaps into things that I want to do because I have a safety net. You know, I've got a partner that's, you know, like got a pretty good job, like, you know, I've got a very healthy kind of life that we lead. We've got a house that we live in, that we're stable. So I have all of those privileges in my life that allow me to do that. So I think that makes it easy for me to say, go and jump into things. And I know that it's not the same for everyone. Yeah. But I think there are little incremental things that we can do to support ourselves to be able to get our lives to be where we want to end up. And I kind of look at the story of my family and how they got to this point in Australia and how I got to this point in my life. And I guess it's just all about options and freedom in terms of how do you give yourself these options in life? What do you need to do to work towards giving yourself options? And I guess it kind of connects into this wonderful possibility thing, you know, like there are all of these possibilities that can happen. And sometimes you have to make little decisions along the way that allow you to get to that point. But for me as a teacher, the way I kind of like approach it with my students is at the end of school, it's not about whether you go into university or whether you go into being a tradie or whether you go into doing X, Y, or Z. It's about getting to that point and being able to choose. Mm-hmm. It's not about, you know, I don't want you to get to the end of year 11 or year 12 or whenever you choose to leave and go, I don't have any choice of what my next stage of my life looks like. I want to be able to make a choice where I want to go. And I think that's the big kind of overarching perspective that I take into teaching. Like, give yourself opportunities, give yourself the freedom to choose.
I guess final question, what's your next choice? What's next for you?
Taxi driver, obviously. The
Yeah.
world's most so-qualified taxi driver.
Yeah. All right, Lucky, thanks so much for joining.
Well, do you know what? It's so I've been in all of my careers for about 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years each. So I've got about 7 years left, I reckon, in teaching.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, I'm like really into like woodworking at the moment. So that's like maybe a hyper-focused thing as well. Maybe that will pass and I'll do something else. I don't know. Like I love lots of things. Like I love making music. I love kind of being outside and building things around our house. And I don't know. I just don't know. But again, this is like, I'm not a thinker. I don't plan. I'm not a planner. So whatever happens will kind of happen in some way. But I've given myself enough kind of like things in life to be able to go, okay, well, if that happens, this will work out. So like, if we decide to travel and we go somewhere around Australia or something and drive around, I've got a teaching degree. I can work in schools, I can go do something else. I can photograph, and it's all of my education in its different ways. Like, whether I have learnt it at school or whether I've taught myself watching YouTube videos, all of these things that I've learnt along the way have now put me in a position where I can choose what I want to do next. And whatever that is, I've got the skills to be able to make it work. So I don't know, I might be in your seat soon.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll mark our calendars for 7 years' time.
In 7 years' time,
See what your
we'll swap
choice is
spots.
then. Yeah,
Sounds good.
okay.
Yep.
Well, Lucky, thanks so much for chatting to us today.
Thanks, Dom. It's been awesome, man. Thank you.